Today, I'm privileged to share with you a very special film, one that I think could inspire any creative. And if there was ever a film that defined minimal filmmaking, well, I think this is it. I actually learned about this story while we were there on location. We were visiting my wife's cousin and his family, and that's who this story is about. So there, sitting in the living room after learning about his story, it's there and then that we decided to create this project. That means that we had no pre-production, only had 3 hours to be able to set up, shoot, and then leave for another event. And then I had to use what was on me, what was in my backpack, and that was it. So I'll be showing you how we did this, including some BTS, doing a full breakdown, which might give you some helpful tips about lighting and cinematography. And speaking of lighting, I think you might be really surprised what we end up using. So stick around for that. Without further ado, here's the film, Arte is AMOR.
El arte para mí es una búsqueda constante de esa sensación espiritual que uno tiene de expresarse a través del medio de un papel, a través del medio de la pintura, de un lienzo, de una escultura con barro. Para mí el arte es eso, es pasión, es amor. Nazco en una provincia, en la provincia más pobre de República Dominicana, es Elia Piña. Y allí luego me mudo a Santo Domingo a la edad de 6 años, con mi mamá, mi abuela y mis tíos, que me dieron mucho apoyo. Gracias a ellos, pues tuve educación. Bien, desde pequeño siempre tenía la necesidad de crear cosas. Gracias a Dios he tenido la bendición de tener manos ágiles, de hacer muchas cosas. Y recuerdo los primos míos siempre me buscaban, ven, vamos a hacer una casa que tú la haces mejor que nosotros y tú sabes hacerla, la de nosotros se rompe, la tuya no. Porque yo veía como mis abuelos y mi abuela hacían sus casas. Y con el tiempo, mi esposa ve lo que yo hago, mi esposa Rina, y ella es que me empuja y me da esa patada de que vamos a hacer esto. Y me dice, mira, hay una señora que da unas clases, unos talleres de arte, ve, inscríbete y aprende lo que tú necesites y vamos a ver lo que pasa. Pues conozco a don Fernando Varela y soy asistente de él ya por 4 años trabajando con él, día a día, hombro a hombro, como se diría. Y allí aprendo mucho de lo que es el arte. Uno de los proyectos que a mí más me apasionan o me han apasionado de todo lo que he hecho es la pintura de mi abuela. Porque mi abuela para mí, aparte de ser una abuela fantástica, era mi madre también. Decidí embarcarme en ese proyecto de pintarla, pero yo lo que quería era la expresión de ella, cómo era ella en el día a día. ¿Dónde quiero llegar? Quiero llegar a que la persona conozca mi arte y a través de ella se sientan esa sensación que yo siento al pintar cada una de ellas, que se sientan parte de la obra, que se sientan parte del arte, que sea como ese vínculo entre el arte, el artista y la persona o el yo de esa persona.
Well, thank you for watching. Now let's do a little breakdown. I want to walk through the film, and hopefully you can gain some tips when it comes to be able to make the most out of what you have with you. Because I think you agree that all of us filmmakers can get put in the situation at times. So let's get into it. First and foremost, my first step when we got down there, knowing that we only had, I think when I say 3 hours, it wasn't even that, maybe closer to 2.5 hours to do this, to pull this off. I wanted to get him sit down and get the interview started. And so figure out what we're going to do for lighting and what it's going to look like for composition in the background. So here is what we used for lighting. It was actually a shop light. So one with a little squeeze handle on there, that a clip that would go up, and we clipped it up on the rafter, and then we used a pillowcase. Yes, a pillowcase for the diffusion. That was a first for me. But as I'm looking at the interview here, you'll see in the background there was the also another light, and so that actually is one of those IKEA lights that you bend. So you happen to have that laying around on one of his desks. So we pulled that out, actually wired it up behind there, and then just kind of shown that down behind there to be able to give some depth. And so that's something that if you're really trying to squeeze more of a cinematic look out of your imagery, that's one tip I can give you. So because you can see the effect here, because I got to say, I'm extremely happy with how this turned out. We have that nice soft light on his face. Then you have this nice contrast that comes down the side of his face. Then we have that light in the background that added that contrast, gave him a little bit of backlight. And we shot this on the red Komodo in the widescreen setting, so the 2.4:1 ratio. And I talk a lot about that in my other red Komodo videos. You can go check those out if you want to. This is definitely my favorite setting on this camera, giving it that really nice wide, using the whole length of the sensor. But it wasn't just the look of the Komodo that stood out to me. It was also the fact that I didn't have a monitor with me. And so I was able to use my iPad. So here's an image of what our setup looked like. And it also offered another challenge because I usually, and normally in these circumstances, I'd be doing the directing, I'd be doing the interview. But because he doesn't speak much English, my wife actually had to step in and do the interview. So here I was just having to do camera and sound, make sure everything went accordingly. But I love the fact that I was able to control the camera with my iPad and also monitor as well. And so that would be something I would say that if you do have a camera that can do that, because there are more and more cameras coming out that can do that, I'd make sure you have a device on you in your backpack, whether it's maybe an iPad mini or just your phone, make sure it's well charged, because that honestly, I think it would have not turned out as well if we couldn't have done that. Now, I'll stay on the subject of lighting. One of the things that I'll say is I wanted the look of this film to stay true to the story, and this story is very much organic. I want it to be almost like you could almost touch it and you could feel the grit, the grain, the struggle a little bit, and as well as just the pure, organic, authentic artisanship that he really displays in his work, and just as a person. And so that way I try to keep working, keep the shadows present. So we kept just moving around the lights. That would be something I would say, don't be afraid to do that. Even in a cramped time frame, because here's an example of a shot that we did. I tried it. It was like, no, this is way too much light. So having these different lights on. So we actually turned some of these lights off, move the light so then I could get him backlit, right? So the light was on the other side of him and shooting in towards the light. So that gave it such a better look and such a more of an authentic feel. My other strategy was to just be able to move around a little bit and not shoot everything in the same location. So I tried to scope out 3 to 4 different locations that I could shoot him in. Use a wide shot, use a medium, use the close-ups. So that was probably one of the first things that I sketched out, and so that would be something I would highly recommend. Just being able to get that, maybe it's mentally, but even if you have to take just a second to write those things down, because as you're really in a rush and adrenaline's pumping, you might forget some of those things. So that's that was the game plan. And so I was able to move him from the table. But let me just break that down really quickly. I used the light. You can see when he comes in initially in the beginning of the film, and he turns on you can see that that's the light that we were using. And so just to use that to be able to have the shadows work in our favor, to shoot him from a side view. The background really worked well because it was dimly lit, but also had a little bit of something going on. You'll also notice too, I just want to insert this. You'll see that we did some detail shots. So that'll be something that I would think is so paramount and so key in a story like this. Grabbing just the shots of the paintbrushes, the shots of it's actually his biological mother in this shot here. So it just tells a story of him. He has right there. Some of the other artwork. So just these pieces, again, it just fills in a lot of the gaps and a lot of the story. And so if you're putting together a film like this, I would just say I would highly recommend that you put those pieces in there and put it together. Now for sound. So sound, again, super happy that I happen to have I happen to carry the tripod, the sound equipment that I have that I use. Now, I'm actually talking to you on it right now. I can actually pull this off and show you. So this is what I used. So this was just attached to a stand. And I talk about this full setup in my minimalistic sound recording video. I'll put the card up here. You can go check that out. But that's really honestly what saved us in this project, because not only was I able to get really good sound in the interview, but also my strategy was is I put this off to the side and I was able to get really close to him when he was doing certain things, when he was scraping, when he was drawing. So you get these really crisp, clean, real close-up sounds. You're intimate. Because the alternative is if I would have just had a mic on top of the camera, every time I would move the camera around, the sound would have changed, right? So that was something that we did, and I was able to move it around very quickly, being on a tiny little stand. You can see it actually here in this shot. I got it in the shot on accident, so you can kind of see what I was talking about. Able to get right in there, close to the level. So that worked beautifully, and that is another element I will highly, highly recommend. I'm sure most of you already know that how important sound is, but I think especially in this film, it added another layer and just raised that production value. And it was wired, by the way, right straight into. So using the wireless. You just the Rode here just wired right into the red, so I didn't have to worry about doing a bunch of mixing and a bunch of syncing later. So that's another little tip for you, and I talk about that again in that video that I talked about. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is story. So, the challenge, obviously, not being able to understand all that he was talking about, I had to be able to kind of put together for my wife what she was telling me. And so, right away, what I wanted to do was just put this into a couple different segments. So, I wanted to learn about where he came from. I wanted to learn about what his passion was. I wanted that powerful kind of introduction as he talks about more of a philosophical view of art and what it is for him. And then where he came from, we put next, and then what really how he got started, and then where he wants to go in the future. So that was kind of the compartment, the different compartments. And so you can use those, you can steal those and use them for your next film. I find that almost kind of template or way of being able to tell a story works beautifully, and it really worked well for this. Now, obviously, I would have loved to be able to have more time, and so I did want to state this. If I would have had more time in pre-production, I would have captured perhaps his house. I would have captured him out in different settings, really developed some tone shots, maybe some other shots to really round out the story. But we just didn't have that time. So, but that's what I've used, and not all in every story, but just in quick kind of on the run and gun type of shoots, those getting those answers, the questions, those getting the answers to those questions really can help you. So yeah, I hope those were helpful tips. If you have any questions or comments about anything I've talked about, please leave in a comment below. Before you go, though, I did want to ask you a favor, please. As you saw at the end of the film, we are really trying to get this video out there and get more awareness to try to help him, try to assist in his initiative. So if you don't mind, if you would share this with others, if you'd click the like button, let YouTube know that they can send it out to more people. That would be very much appreciated. He's an amazing guy, and he needs some support. And if you yourself would like to support that, feel free to reach out to me through Instagram, through leaving a comment below, through my website, however you'd like to do that, and we can continue the conversation. But anyway, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.